One of the big mistakes that I see a lot of times when guitar players play, when they go to solo, is that they're just not very confident with some of the techniques that you really need to make the guitar sound cool. And for me, they're vocal techniques. Those are really the ones that I was trying to explain to people, is utilizing things like sliding, using vibrato, using bending. Those are essential techniques for you to develop to a mastery level. So when you go to play, you're confident. I'm never concerned with how great a guitar player is. That's a whole other argument of who's better than who. And there's never a winner in that sort of argument. All I'm concerned with is that you are getting better on a daily basis as you practice. And one of the ways to do that is to keep trying to work on your self-confidence. When you go to play, if you don't feel confident with something that you're doing, you get nervous, you get stressed out, and you don't want to play in front of people, or you get worried because so-and-so walks into the club and you're playing and you're like, oh crap, now that person's there and I suck, blah, blah, blah. We don't want anything like that. So one of the greatest ways to elevate your guitar playing is to just get really, really comfortable with the three vocal elements, which are sliding, bending, and vibrato. Now, I could go into a 3-hour dissertation on all of these things, and we just don't have time for that. But I do want to introduce you to them and get you thinking about them, and then, of course, you can study them to whatever degree you want. Let's just start off by talking about sliding. Really, there's two kinds of slides for me. There are slides that you just slide from nowhere, and then there's slides between pitches, right? So if I was to start off a phrase, I might just slide in. Now, you'll notice that little thing I just did right there had a bunch of different slides in it, right? I love sliding. Instead of just playing every note, it sounds very smooth to be able to slide into things. So a lot of times when I start playing a phrase, I'll slide in from nowhere. I'm not trying to go, I'm not making a 2 to a 7 sound. I'm just using minor pentatonic here in A. I'm just sliding in from nowhere. I'm just making the slide sound. So just getting comfortable with being able to make a nice, smooth slide. It doesn't have to be a long slide. It doesn't have to be a short slide. It doesn't matter, right? It's just whatever's comfortable for you. So you don't always feel like if I'm going to slide up to 14th fret of the 4th string here, I don't have to go. I don't have to make this humongous slide when I do this. I can just slide in. And you'll notice what I want you to avoid in this particular slide is that there's not a starting note. I'm not hearing bum. I'm not hearing that. It's just kind of an elegant slide in. That's all it is. The other kind of slide would be sliding between two notes, right? Like right there, I'm sliding from 5 to 7 and then back to 5. Okay, but getting comfortable with you and your ability to play. How much do you know about your fretboard so you can actually move around? You could slide in and out all over the place, but it just makes for a nice effect. Okay, you don't have to use them a little or a lot. You can do whatever you want with them. But it's a nice way of getting from point A to point B on the guitar because obviously we spend a lot of our time playing horizontally. So obviously this is a nice way of being able to shift from one position to the next is using sliding. Vibrato is another really important one. Vibrato is learning how to take a note and simply shake it a little bit to give it just a little bit of vocal quality. Okay. Now, when I do vibrato towards the floor, which means what I'm doing is I'm grasping onto the guitar. You can see my thumbs over the top, so I'm kind of grabbing onto the guitar. And I'm just lightly pulling and then releasing back to the same spot I was in. So as I pull that string, the string goes sharp, the pitch changes, and then I come back to the same spot that I was in. So really, if you think about it, you're trying to create a wave that's nice and smooth, right? That's what you want your audio to do, just creating a nice, you don't want it to be, irregular and all that sort of thing. Not that can't be useful. Again, the limits it's limitless on a guitar, right? But for the most part, if you're trying to sing to somebody, you're trying to keep things nice and smooth. You can control how wide you want the vibrato. and you can control how fast you want the vibrato. Right? You can do whatever you want with it. Okay? So I tend to go down. Some people will vibrato up, and that's perfectly cool. The only time I really need to do that is if I get to the first string, I can't go down because I'll go off the guitar, right? I'll fall off the guitar. So I have to go upward and create a vibrato that way. Your thumb doesn't always have to be on top. If you like your thumb back a little bit, it's okay too. So whatever's comfortable for you. The point is, if you feel like the slide or the vibrato is something that needs work, and again, the more you tear down those walls and you stop, pretending, because again, even for guitar players that have been playing forever, the goal is to keep trying to perfect. How can I get myself better? So it's more fun for me, more interesting for me to play, keeps me inspired, keeps me wanting to practice, and certainly boosts my confidence level. So when I do go out and perform, I'm enjoying myself, and I'm hoping that other people are enjoying what I'm doing as well. That's kind of the point. So you look at your vibrato, you look at your sliding, and you ask yourself, what is it that I could do to make this better, right? What do I need to do? Am I good with slides, but I need a little work on my vibrato or that sort of thing? And again, I guarantee you, the better you get with them, the more confident you're going to be and the more you're going to actually use those in your playing. So the last one, the third one, is bending. And there are a host of different kinds of bends. And again, we could go into a whole day-long discussion about bending. Bending is awesome. But what I want you to be aware of is thinking about whether or not your bends actually sound like they're in tune, whether you're doing a half-step bend or a whole-step bend or a 3-fret bend. Are you actually bending in tune? So let's just take 3 of the most common bends that we use in the A minor pentatonic position here. We've got our bend on the 8th fret of the 3rd string, or 1st string, the 8th fret of the 2nd string, and the 7th fret of the 3rd string. So these are whole-step bends, 2-fret bends. So if I was bending this 8, I want it to sound like a 10. That's my goal. Okay, so I want to bend that 8 up. See, I want to bend it till it sounds like that pitch. And there's 2 things that I need to be aware of when I do that. Number 1, how it feels. Obviously, bending the 1st string is kind of hard if you've never really done bends before. It's a pretty tight string, and so bending that up takes a little bit of work. The second thing, though, is pitch. You have to be hearing that pitch in your head when you bend that up. Okay? So you just practice it. You don't have to try and rush in and do a million different licks and blah, blah, blah. You just relax and you sit down and you start practicing that bend. See if you can get the pitch where you want it. Now I've got the same bend on the 2nd string. And then the same bend on the 3rd string. I'm bending from 7 to 9. The other thing about bending, and mostly bending more than the vibrato or the sliding, is that when you do bends, don't always feel like you have to be in a hurry to get off the bend and get somewhere else. Enjoy the bend, right? If you're playing and you go for that bend, always be aware that the first step is to feel it, right? You got to get that bend up, and then the second step is to reach the pitch that you need. Use your ear to reach that pitch. Once you get that pitch, then you can worry about adding a vibrato to the bend or something like that. But don't just, because it just sounds really bizarre, like, I don't know, phasers from Star Trek or something like that. You got to be careful. You got to get that bend up. Then you can make it sing. See what I mean? So really be aware of that. Okay. The more you become in tune with your playing and what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, then you can start developing those weaknesses and make them into something that is powerful and confident to use every day when you play. And I've seen this a million times. You go to jam with a student or whatever, and they go for a bend and they don't quite hit the bend, and then they get nervous and then they don't do it anymore. They don't do any more bending. Bending is something that you should be using all the time in your guitar playing. certainly in the blues, because it sounds like a voice. It's singing. You know, when you go... There's just such great stuff happening in there. And so it's really important that you get comfortable with those, whether you're doing a half-step bend or whole step bend or a 3-fret bend or a 4-fret bend or whatever it is you're doing. You got to target those. You got to make them sound, you know, in tune. That's really, 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 really important. So developing sliding, developing vibrato, and then developing your bends to really make your guitar sing.